and we thought, we should do some classes, you know, and because there's really nothing out there for classes, you know, and so I guess that's where I kind of honed a few of my skills in doing this. And for one, I guess it's a passion. It's something I've enjoyed. As all of us, we model to kind of have something in our lives that we can go to and we can enjoy and have some fun. And the basic, I guess with Sheldon, I probably did, well over 100 or 200 classes just in airbrushing. So we ended up doing a lot. And what's really nice to know, Dawn at Wheels and Wings. I'm going to start doing it for Dawn at Wheels and Wings this month, actually, the 30th.
Yeah, it's on the website.
Yeah, and then Nick at Carefree is going to have a little classroom in the back. He's finally decided, I don't want to be a hoarder, and I got to kind of clean my store. And I love Nick; he's a great guy. I've known Nick for 30 plus years. And so Nick is going to clean up, Nick and I are going to clean up one of the things. He's already started to clean up a little room. It's not a big class, it can accommodate about 8 or 10. But again, it just gets us as a community back kind of to where we should be, and that's what I said to Don at Wheels and Wings. I was really quite happy that he's chosen to do that and have a classrooms upstairs. So yeah, when Eros asked me, I thought I'm really honored to be here, and I just will go through some. I don't profess to be the expert of airbrushing. Trust me, there's a lot of much better painters out there than me. For one, I turn down more work than I will take on. I've been asked to do hockey masks. I've been asked to do motorcycle gas tanks, and I just don't do that stuff because I've always believed in modeling. If it's in my wheelhouse of what I can do, I'll do it. But if I don't know how to do it, I am the first to put up my hand and go, nope, sorry, that's not me. I very reluctantly did a motorcycle gas tank a couple of years ago, and the guy was happier than a pig in poo, but I won't do another one because it honestly, I thought I was going to have an anxiety attack every time I picked up my airbrush because it's so outside of what I do, and I'd pick up my airbrush and I was like, so. But modeling is what I tend to do. I'm sorry, I just didn't know what to bring. I have a 109 that I did probably about 15 years ago, and I still dabble a little bit in airplanes. I did a lot of them on commission, but I still will dabble on them. And I did there's a field gun there that I painted about a week ago that I'm for a little vignette I'm working on. So just goes to show you that it's what we all do. We use it as a tool. And what I do is I generally will start with the basics, because a lot of us are so intimidated. We're either really intimidated by an airbrush or opposite. We get into comfort zones and somebody will say, you got to have this airbrush. And I've seen so many people rush out and spend like $600 on an airbrush only to be really, really frustrated, So I've always believed in I start at the basics when I teach this, and kind of how to lessen the frustration of painting, because I think it's a lot of culminations of small little things with airbrushing that at the end of the day kind of frustrates us when something happens, and it happens to us all. I was painting something about a week ago, and Mr. Big Shot, I'm painting, and I'm retired now, so it's kind of nice. I can just do that when I want. But I was painting, and all of a sudden it's like, whoosh, and I was like the air was blue. I was downstairs on my own. I'm like, put it down, just put it down. Where did I go wrong? So it happens to us all. I was talking to John Mahar, one of the best airplane painters, Dave Brown, one of my best friends. And in the last couple of months, we've all had a model that we've completely botched. And John Mahar just is doing I think he's doing a Spitfire for a Model Air magazine, David Parker's magazine, and he has a deadline, right? And it's like, but he botched something. So it happens to us all. But when it comes to an airbrush, what I used to say with Sheldon is, when I was doing it with Sheldon, I have the basic thing that I had as a rule, and guys would laugh, but I'd say clean, 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 and when all else fails, clean. That's it. That's where so many people kind of make mistakes. So if you keep that as your number one rule of painting, clean, 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 and then when you think it's clean, clean again. You'll be fine. Generally, I can easily shoot 5, 6 colors in a setting. If I'm just sitting down and I'm painting, I can sometimes, upwards of about 5 or 6 colors, because I've got it kind of in my brain that I paint, clean, 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 paint, clean, clean, clean. And then the stuff in between is easy. So your paint mixing, your air delivery, we'll talk a little bit about that. I guess the first place to start is air delivery. Again, if anyone has, ask whatever you like to ask. And most people will have, different opinions for air delivery or the brushes they use. Generally, air delivery is probably one of your most important things. A lot of people will start out with pans. It's great. A lot of us started like that, but they're very limited as to what they can do. I've seen every trick in the book when it comes to it. People have sent me pictures of, this is my setup, and there's 19 nitrogen cylinders in their garage, and multiple valves and stuff like that. And it's like, okay. But you want a consistent air delivery. You want a consistent, reliable air delivery. I tend to stay away from, the bigger industrial compressors are exactly what those are, bigger industrial compressors. I'm not an engineer, I don't profess to be one, but generally a good compressor, if it's made for airbrushing, the baffling is much better. So it's a consistent air delivery. There's no pulsating. And even as many inline traps you can put in, if you have a really big, heavy industrial compressor, it's hard to get a consistent air delivery out of it for the pressures that we need. So again, now we go to pressures, right? Because you want a good, consistent air delivery. I've been very blessed to know some of the top modelers on the planet. I still, they're still friends. We hang out. What you want is between 10 and 20 psi. Every modeler I know will work between 10 and 20. You may go a little higher, like automotive guys will go a little higher for delivery of, if it's a thicker enamel and you want high gloss and things like that, you may go up into the 20s and 30s, maybe 50. But for most of us, for what we're doing, like a little 109 or a field gun or whatever we're doing, doesn't matter the scale, between 10 and 20 psi is generally your working pressure. A good compressor like this will take me up to 50 if I need it, and it'll take me down to like 5. Because below 5, you're really kind of pushing it, right? But between 10 and 20 psi is generally what your range is going to be. If somebody says, I consistently paint at 22 psi, okay, I'm sure it works. But for most of us, you just want to spray between 10 and 20. And if you're coming in with that, you're fine. The nice things about some of the newer compressors, this one has a tank, this one you can run 2 lines off of. It's got a purge valve, it's got moisture traps built in. So the nice thing is, it's very quiet. So when you turn it on, that's it. So there's a lot of factors you have to take into account, like
price.
Yeah, price is obviously, price is a big one, and that's an expensive compressor. But some of the
How much?
This one's about 6 now. I think it's about 6 because it's got dual lines and stuff. But I think just the standard Smart Jet or whatever is going to come in around $200, And generally, for the amount of painting you're going to do, if you're modeling a lot, I do recommend buying a half decent compressor. Because again, the adage of you get what you pay for is exactly it. Some of the larger compressors I just don't, that's just not me. But air delivery is your number one thing. Once you have that underway, you think, okay, what do I need in an airbrush? Again, when we look at airbrushes, that's over 100-year-old design. That's incredible. I think that the patent for the Pash H was around 1920. So when you think about how, and again, why was it designed? It was designed for photo retouching. That's what they were designed to do. It was a very, very...
Playboy in 1920?
Yeah, but, sorry?
They had Playboy in 1920?
But when you think about...
Gibson girls.
Yeah. When you think about, you know, that thing has stood the test of time. And I think I was talking to Don at Wheels and Wings not long ago, and he did like a comparison in what it was in 1920. I want to say it was like $13. But oh yeah, it was a lot of money. When you did the conversion, it was like, oh, monster money, like back then. But it was a precision tool. You think for a 100-year-old design, so why I say the basics sometimes are just fine. When you look at the Pache, you know, it comes with 3 needles, a fine, a medium, and a wide or heavy. If you're doing a model railroad layout and you want to do some groundwork, you put on the heavy cone or nozzle, and it will spray in a very wide, you know, it'll give you that coverage you need. If you want to take it down to, honestly, a pencil line, with the fine needle, it'll go down to a pencil line, you know. And the versatility of it, again, you know, some of the top builders, you know, and Dave would test it, you know, like Ron Lowry, one of the top airplane modelers ever that we've seen, that you know, some of the best museum work in the world, that was his prime airbrush. That was it. So, you know, that's why when people say, oh, I've never, you know, you need something better, you really don't. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. You really don't.
You need to get better.
Yeah, it's all in again what we do as a hobby, right? You know, if that is your prime airbrush, some of the, like I said, some of the top painters use this airbrush. Some of the top illustrators still use this airbrush. You know, so that's why I never discount it, and that's why there's always one in my box, because I still love it. Like, once in a while, I still pull it out and I spray with it. And why I like it is it's a tank. It really is a tank. When I talk about, you know, when I used to teach this with Sheldon or whatever, the thing about airbrushing and the mindset of cleaning, so that's our most important aspect, cleaning, comes from, you know, part of it too is, you know, like when people would ask me, well, why do you clean it all the time? Well, it's kind of like my jobs, right? Like, you know, with you know, in the fire service or, you know, the military, our equipment is always clean. Like, your life relies on your equipment. When people see a truck and they go, wow, a fire truck, oh geez. It's not clean because we want people to gawk at it. It's clean because the equipment we use, we rely on for our lives and somebody else's life. So we can't take it out and go, oh man, that's really not, that's gummy. How do we get that off? Start cleaning it, you know, take the jaws of life out and start cleaning them, right? You know, no, every time we use them, we take them back and we service them, right? So that's kind of the mindset I have of my equipment when I airbrush. I know that sounds like way over dramatic, but if you keep that in your brain, you've spent a lot of money on this. You know, and even if you're buying a basic water or basic compressor, you've paid couple hundred bucks. You're going to pay $100 at least for a good airbrush. So, you know, you're spending half decent money. So that's why, you know, when you connect all those dots, right, it makes sense to take care of your stuff. So the Pache, amazing airbrush. I can't say enough about it. My second brushes are Iwata. Sandy will still paint, you know, he uses a Revolution.
Yeah, it's the cheapest one.
Or an Eclipse. This is my higher end one. And again, it's kind of a mid-level one. But again, I use that thing every day, almost every day. And I take pride in it, like I do. I take it apart, I clean it, and I put it away every day. And I know that sounds really bizarro, but this is probably a 7-year airbrush now. And I've never had a problem with it, okay? So you have to kind of say, okay, the basics of airbrushing. Single action, double action. Single action, it's all one. Double action, you know, finger goes down for air, pulls back for paint. I don't even, you know, when it comes to that debate, again, it's personal preference. I can spray with both. The single action flexibility of a Pache is amazing. you know, because it's so simple. Once you get your line established, and even when you want to kind of go into do a little bit finer work, you find that your hand-eye coordination and your motor skills with the passage, you know, once you master it, it'll do anything. You know, and it's just a single action airbrush, you know, everything's done at the end. The air and the paint mix at the end, and you know, that's it. Presto. It's pretty simple. Internal guns, is there more cleaning? Yeah, there's more cleaning in an internal airbrush. There's way more cleaning involved. But again, you know, the flexibility, you know, it's a great tool. It's just more of a personal preference of what you want to paint with and how you want to paint. The next thing, I've always believed in, you can, like Mr. Bailey, you can never learn enough. Like we all learn. You know, everyone. I've never discounted stuff like. To this day, I still take fine scale modelers when they come out with like their airbrushing issues. They're amazing. Yeah, like honestly, like you know, there's all you need right there. It will go through all the basics. And to this day, I know that sounds really goofy, but I will buy these magazines on the basics of airbrushing, and I'll read them. Because you know what, you can never learn enough. That's my theory. We're in a age now, like a plethora of social media. There's tons and tons of stuff that you can do but I'm always inspired by, you know, don't be ashamed to look at these magazines and just say, okay, like how can I do that? Like how can I get that finish on that lang? You know, inspire yourself, and that's why I love, because you know, again, this issue alone, there's a gorgeous P51 in metallic, you know, the new Edward kit, just stunning. You know, and I, to this day, I've been lucky. I've been published a lot and done really well all over the place, but I still read, I still learn. And again, technique, the more you practice, the more you get comfortable with your airbrush, you know, don't be intimidated by looking at stuff like that, because you're all good modelers. You know, we're all coming to these settings, and we're all good modelers. I still am inspired when I look at, you know, I'll see somebody's work I don't know, and I'm still inspired, you know. So I use all the reference I can. I don't ever discount stuff like that, because again, you know, it may give you that one tip you need. That's it. The one tip you might need, right? And you're still going to have those days like I had last week where I was spraying and I went, psh, I'm like, oh, just walk away. That's it. Just walk away, you know. And I know so many modelers that have, you know, put like 109s into a wall at Mach 3 and, you know, or a tiger under my foot, just, you know, and just that's it. So we've all had those days. But how you can avoid a lot of that is just by knowing, okay, I've got good air delivery. If your compressor, if you bought the compressor that you've had for 10 years at a lawn sale and it's done the trick, and your neighbor's like 9 blocks away can hear it, maybe it's time for a new compressor. You buy your good compressor, you buy your airbrush. Don't, you know, most of us are modelers here. You know, you don't have to be led into, it's not a pressure sales thing, you know. Don't be led into saying you need, you know, the custom micron. Very few guys I know paint with the custom micron. I don't have one. I've tried it. Is it a nice airbrush? Oh my God, it's amazing. But again, it doesn't do much more than that, really, in the hands of a good artist, right? So don't be misled. You don't have to have the absolute cream of the crop. I'd say Cadillac or Mercedes. You don't have to. It's all in those little things now. So now we've done that. You got your compressor, you got your airbrush, you're starting to paint. You're thinking, how do I paint better? That's where a lot of the kind of experience and a lot of the technique kicks in. The one thing I'll tell you is we are in the absolute, I know it sounds again over dramatic, we're in the absolute golden age of paint now. When you walk into a hobby shop and you go, whoa! Like I'm intimidated. Like I went into Wheels and Wings maybe about a month ago, and Don handed me like 4 or 5. He goes, what are you working on? I'm like, I don't know, I got a whole bunch of stuff. He goes, try this. He gave me like 8 things of paint, right? And he's like, oh, I need your opinion on it. So I'm like, it's lacquer. No, I hate lacquer. So it's kind of like, you know, we're in the golden era of paint. So if you, any color, if you want to paint like a Brazilian Abrams on Independence Day, there's a color for it. You know what I mean? Like there is a color. Some model company now says, oh, we're going to make the color. Right? So there's the paint rack. So we're in the golden age of paint. We got that established. My modeling world for airbrushing, there's only one paint. And Tamiya. That is the paint that will never, ever, ever, ever fail you. The only shortcoming is color range. And they've always been criticized for that. Like, you know, Mr. Tamiya goes, whoa. You know, like, do you think we should do maybe some RLM colors? And Mr. Tamiya's like, whoa, not yet. So finally, I guess after like gazillions of letters, they kind of, okay, I make one. Right? So they're slow like a molasses in bringing out a new color. They just basically gave us 3 new German, like the German armor colors. Right? So after whatever. Tamiya is amazing. Tamiya also just brought out their lacquer line. So again, like Mr. Impulsive Shopper, I'm up there. I had to try it. So I bought a couple of them and I sprayed it and I'm like, oh, whoa, it's lacquer. You know, but it sprays like, it goes on like glass. Like it's as smooth as glass, right? So paint is an important thing, right? You've got so many choices now. You've got so many, do I stay with enamel? Do I stay with lacquer? Do I stay with acrylic? Whatever. They're all choices you kind of have to make.
Use primer?
Yeah, I do. So yeah, we'll talk. I personally prime everything I do. That's just me. Because for one, I want to see my flaws. That's my main reason, is seeing my flaws. Because I prime, and then I can go, oh, whoa, my knife slipped there or something. I got to fill that or just clean it a bit or whatever. So I always prime. What do I prime in? Again, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. But I do believe that priming, A, for me, is to find your flaws. If there's flaws on your model that you have to see. And B, for better paint adhesion. So, you know, the paint will bite on much better if you do prime.
Also, find, Tom, if you're using a lot of photo etch.
Yes,
resin
multimedia.
plastic,
Yeah, anything multimedia. Absolutely.
Gives you a base color.
Absolutely. And you know what? Again, I'm lazy. I'm like the laziest model on the planet. But I do now wash a lot of what I will wash the kit sometimes. Like I'll just, you know, I'll take it and just put some dish soap in my hands and just get the trees clean, because sometimes the releasing agent still is there, right? But multimedia, good point.
Yeah. Anything
Resin, photo etch, whatever. But going back to priming, again, you've got tons of choices out there. You know what? I still will use Tamiya rattle can primer on figures. Like that's my prime, because I do a lot of figure painting and sculpting. That's kind of my prime go-to is Tamiya rattle can. Games Workshop is really good. If I am spraying priming, a spray primer on, I'm lazy, so I really don't buy any of the pre-mixed stuff. I just use Tamiya XF1 because I tend to spray in black, because what I do a lot is I use it as a pre-shade when I paint. So I use Tamiya XF1. But yeah, priming is important. But whatever you prime in, I know some guys will cut Mr. Surfacer, you know, like, you know, Garfield Ingram would cut Mr. Surfacer, and oh my God, it would go on beyond glass. Like it was the smoothest finish you'd see. So priming's kind of your own thing. What works for you, that's what you want to stay with. But definitely prime. You know, the 109 was primed. That's probably a 15-year-old model. I primed all that when I did it. The gun was primed, whatever. So priming's important. But when it go back to paint, you have to kind of make a choice. And that choice too depends on A, where we're painting. I paint in my basement in a model room I've made. Again, I'm the first to put my hand up. I'm kind of lazy. I use a small, we've talked about that, I use a small little paint, like a small little, basically it's about the size of the compressor. And I bought a Princess Auto. It doesn't exhaust out because my theory is I paint a lot, but I paint 99% acrylic. So I'm not, you know, I'm not that worried about it. Like, you know, it's not really that offensive.
I still wear a respirator myself.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. If I'm painting a lot, yeah, we'll talk about that. I got some there. So, the one at Princess Auto I bought a year ago. It folds into about that size. It actually has handles that fold out into the booth, and it really it draws the paint into a filter. And I just wash the filter. I just replace it or wash it, but it does the trick. But you really have to kind of take all of those things into account, like where am I spraying, what am I spraying, how much will I spray, and if you take all those things into account, you kind of narrow it down. But you definitely want to kind of extricate the exhaust somewhere, because it can get to you after a while. Tamiya, I like it because it's not offensive. It gives you 90% of what you need for color range, and you have kind of choices into how to mix it, right? So we'll go into paint mixing too. My other paint I just will use all the time, I like Life Color. Again, it's acrylic, it just goes on beautifully. It hand paints spectacularly. Tamiya hand painting, no. I've only ever known 2 people who can hand paint it. One figure painter who was as weird, but one of the top painters in the world. And he painted with that for like 10 years, and we were like, Dave Brown, a whole bunch of us were like, there's no way. And then he showed us, and we're like, how do you do that? But he painted with, and the other guy, believe it or not, was, if you remember North Star, Brian Correll, Brian at North Star, he could paint with this. I don't know how he did it. He could paint like an airplane wing, and you'd be like, how do you do that, right? But he could. Tamiya, spraying, spectacular. Life Color, sprays beautifully. It's not offensive, and plus it hand paints beautifully. Vallejo Air, again, pre-mixed. It is nice. Their color range is amazing. You know, like when you look at the colors again, their color range is just infinite in so many ways. But paint is all about how you mix it and how it's going to be delivered onto your model, right? That's the key. So I use a very simple rule for airbrushing, and it's over simple. You want to get your consistency to about 2% milk. Think about it as milk. 2% is where you want to spray. If you're spraying skim, it's too thin. So you have to kind of think, okay, what am I painting and how am I going to deliver the paint onto my model? You don't want it to be runny. You want your air pressure to be set properly. But if you're mixing your paint to about 2% milk, you're always going to be bang on. Table cream is too heavy. Skim is too thin.
What about 1%?
No.
My wife's got me on 1%.
Yeah, 2% works perfect. I know that sounds really simple, but if you cut Tamiya with 50% paint, 50% thinner, which I pretty much do, you're going to get 2% milk. And it's all about application at that point, you know, and where you're keeping your airbrush pointed, at distance of your airbrush point. What distance am I spraying? You'll find that at 50-50, that's about 2% milk, and it will spray beautifully. It's just, again, it's about technique, right? The thing about painting is Tamiya is incredibly forgiving. You can mix it with just water.
So are you varying
Yeah.
your air pressure when you're spraying Tamiya? I know you said
No.
between 10 and 20.
Yeah, I'll keep it at maybe 12, 13, right? Let's take a, what do you spray at, Sandy?
Around about 14 or 15
Yeah.
minutes. And I mix usually Tamiya with Gunzi leveling fluid. And
Yeah.
I usually maybe go 60 to 70%, 30% paint.
What do you, Alex?
Do for the home stuff,
Mm-hmm.
10, about 15, 20 for Tamiya.
Yeah. So that's the setting.
on the actual compressor, 10 or 20?
Yeah.
10, 20 out
Yeah.
of compressor, because when you hit the,
Yeah, it fluctuates a bit.
yeah.
But not, again, maybe it's just me, but it's not really noticeable. If I'm at 15 at my compressor, it's generally not, I don't notice it. I notice it if I'm going higher. Like if you go, do you spray higher? You've sprayed.
Rare unless it's really a thick paint.
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, so, and again, that brings us back to those basic things, right? Like for most of our applications of modeling, we're really gonna be in that window. And so you're really not gonna, it's again, at that level, at that point, it's gonna be mainly based on the quality of your spraying, which goes back to cleaning. How clean is my airbrush? And just getting comfortable with your airbrush, right? So, go ahead, sure.
Here's a color, more plain color. It's called Mr. Color. What do you say about that?
It's great. Like a Gunsy, like Gunsy.
Gunsy, yeah.
It's amazing. But again, see, for me, it's lacquer.
Yeah.
And now with the color variations, I don't really tend to paint a lot of lacquer. Like I tend to stay away from it because, for one, going back to if you're spraying with lacquer, please, like whoever we look up to, wherever, gives us one set of lungs. That's it. Please wear a respirator if you're spraying lacquer because it's very offensive, like to your body. Again, and these are just particulate. These are, right? These are just particulate. Yeah, they are. Like you want something. You want a canister. Yeah, you want a canister. But that again, that's why I again, it's just my opinion, but that's why I kind of sway away from the lacquers because they're just so offensive, right, when it comes to spraying. But please wear a mask if you're going to be spraying with lacquer. But when we come back to paint, we have to really be careful about what we mix paint with. Again, Tamiya, incredibly forgiving. So we can use water, we can use isopropyl alcohol, we can use lacquer thinner, we can use the Tamiya leveling thinner. You've got a whole variety of, will it spray better if it's mixed with leveling thinner? Yeah, it does. It sprays better. But again, you may not want to use that. You may just want to stick with water. Tamiya, and again, there's a reason why they make their own thinner. And so the first rule of thumb I say to people is if the manufacturer makes a thinner, use it. Because generally the manufacturer that makes the thinner, they know that makes the paint. They kind of know their chemical formulations, right? So the X20, again, that's what this is made for. And if you mix this 50-50, you can't go wrong at all. Now when you get into different paints, they become way more quirky. So if I mix life color with water, it sprays beautifully, absolutely beautifully. If I mix life color with their own thinner, it sprays absolutely beautifully. But if I spray life color with isopropyl alcohol, I get yogurt. And very quickly your airbrush is going to just go, whoa, and you are going to have yogurt in your airbrush and it is not fun to clean. Same with Vallejo. If you try to use Vallejo with isopropyl alcohol, you got yogurt, right? So the general rule I will kind of say is try to stick with the manufacturer's thinner. Generally it's there for a reason. Somebody was asking me about Mission models. I love the color, like the color formulation is beautiful, but again, I'm Mr. Lazy. So when it comes to having to put in like X amount of drops into their own paint and then X amount of drops of their own retarder and then mixing it, and then I got to figure out, okay, did I put 12 drops, 15 drops, how many drops I put? It's hard for me to keep track of it. It's a beautiful paint, don't get me wrong. They've got wonderful color range, but again, to me, that's on the spectrum of overcomplicated. Now some people cut it with water. Just use it and cut it with water, and they say it's fine. So you're going to have to kind of find your own balance of what works for you, but generally stay with the manufacturer's thinner, right? That's why the manufacturer does it. And that will make your spraying a lot easier. The other little tools, this is a godsend. This one is the first, I think the first time they did it, they made it. It's showing its age. I couldn't live without this thing painting. Now, always put it in the paint, then turn it on. Because Mr. Dummy has done this many, many, many times, watching the hockey game or whatever, and I'm like,
Pulling it out's the word.
pulling it out. But you want to paint, you want to stir your paint really well. That's my point. Tamea did these amazing little, remember McDonald's had the little coffee, the plastic coffee, like the little cocaine spoons? And then Tamea brought out the little, these little cocaine, Tamea cocaine. Again, you want to get that sediment off the bottom. You want to get that paint mixed really, really well. Not pushing a store, I'm not doing that because I go to the mall equally. I live near Schaumburg, so there's a Gates. We've got an amazing little hobby shop in Newmarket. There's Carefree in Oakville. There's Wheels and Wings. We're so lucky to have the amount of hobby shops we do. But I know Greg at Carefree he's like Mr. Scrounger. And the nail artists, all the like the fingernail painting artists, they have like these little proprietary paint shakers. They're amazing. Now, I saw one that's for they say it's marketed for hobby, but it's like $90. Like, it's expensive. But I think Greg at Carefree has tracked them down from the nail industry, and they're going to be way cheaper, like hopefully like $30. But it's an amazing little paint shaker. And it's amazing in its design because it's got like a silicone strap, and it's adjustable for any kind of paint container. So Vallejo, Humbrol, you name it, you can just kind of take this little silicone strap and put it over, and then press the button, and it's like a little mini para paint store in your room. It's like,
I saw a YouTube video where a guy put it on a jigsaw and he strapped it to the blade.
see, I can't. God bless him, but I don't have that energy. I really don't want to go to the garage, get my jigsaw, put it in a vise, and go, I gotta stir some paint. Like I'm the lazy
The
guy.
guys at Cambridge showed me that.
I can't.
It's hysterical.
I can't.
It's
Yes.
never been used as a jigsaw, trust me.
I know.
It's
Yes.
crazy.
But the little paint shaker that I saw Greg bring in at Carefree that he's going to try to source. Again, I took all the paints we could. Like I took a Humbrol and Vallejo, Tamea, and it was just absolutely the best paint thing I've ever seen. So I can't
So
wait.
how did it compare to your?
Much.
little-
It's great. You strap the thing in and press the button for like 30 seconds, and now these a little kind of tip that most of you probably know. The nice thing about Vallejo is if you just take a BB or a small ball bearing, you should just open it, and it just it makes it easier to agitate. Yeah, yeah, it just makes it easier to agitate it, right? So, but mixing is very important. You want to get that paint mixed, and then when you go to mix the paint for a race show, again, just little tips. I tend to use glass. Why I like glass? I don't like those plastic pipettes because they just after a while they discolor, and I have a tough time cleaning them. So why I still like, you can still, believe it or not, you can still find glass. There's a couple of there's a surplus place in Kitchener, I think. Princess Auto once in a while will have glass, and to be honest, I still think Shoppers Drug Mart sells them in a 2-pack.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, in a 2-pack. Why I like glass is because I can clean it.
You clean it with a cube.
And I clean, exactly. I use these little cosmetic brushes, and it fits, and they fit right in. Right? So, just don't jam it because it is glass, and I've broken way more of these than I want to admit. But the nice thing is I can clean them, and I know, I can see my paint going in, right? So I like glass, that's just me. Your next best friend for cleaning an airbrush, I gotta be honest now, Shoppers Drug Mart. Why I say that is because all of these little dental thingies are amazing for cleaning your airbrush. So again, this is where I kind of sway away from, you don't need the Iwata set for $49.99. You don't need the Grex set for $19.99. You just got to go to Shoppers Drug Mart. They have different sizes for different chompers. Some of them are very soft. Some of them will work you can work their way into the airbrush and clean it nicely. The latest one I'm using, believe it or not, is their disposable toothpick. Okay? Why I like it is because it has those little filaments on the end that clean your teeth nicely. But when it comes to cleaning your airbrush, you can kind of get them right in and they flex. And so they flex nicely. You can put it in the airbrush, and with the little filament, you won't lose them in your airbrush, and it'll agitate a lot of the stuff out of it to clean it. Okay? So these little disposable toothpicks are beautiful for that. The end with it's pointy too is really nice because you can scrape nicely. And again,
Plus, you can clean your teeth with it.
you can.
Before.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Before.
Yeah. I thought it was a piece of chive. But those things are great. So, don't be afraid to use things like that because you don't have to buy the $25 Iwata brushes because generally they're too big. There's not a lot that they're big. That's reality.
The smallest one you can use.
So now we're looking at, we're mixing any question on mixing paint or problems with paint?
You use pipe cleaners,
Sorry?
pipe cleaners.
Yeah, you can use those.
Yeah, I find them, I sway away from them because they're too fibrous. These things are amazing because they're, they don't lose their filament at all.
There's no
Right.
residue.
Yeah, there's no residue.
You think you can get them at Shoppers, eh?
Yeah, I just buy even Dollarama's got them.
What's a part of Shoppers like?
In the dental, where you buy your toothpick.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
where you buy your toothbrush. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, really.
It's honestly, it's the best airbrush cleaning section of any store. That's what I use. That's the best airbrush cleaning section you'll find. Yeah. Go.
The Vallejo area, you said it already comes pre-thin.
It's pretty thin, yeah.
So you don't cut it with anything at all?
Generally, I don't.
Because I tried it once or twice and I felt like my brush was still getting a little gummed up.
If you do, then you can cut it a little bit. Maybe a little higher pressure. Maybe a little higher pressure. Again, I'm not. I gotta admit, I like pre-mix, I like Vallejo, but it's not my primary paint. I just find that I like the control of mixing my own paint. So, and again, Tamiya is so forgiving. It really is. And
I just like that they had a couple of colors that
No,
were
they
just
do.
bang on.
Totally,
So it's like,
totally.
geez, I don't have to mix it.
Now some of the newer ones some of the newer companies, and God, you gotta admit, like when you see the caps, they're all different colors. Because like AK's got some, but he hates Meg, and Meg's got his own company, and he's still got paint, and Meng's got paint, but now Meng is made by AK, I believe. Like it's just different colors, right? So some of them are a little, like I find that Ammo and Meg, I think they're a little thinner than Vallejo Air. Because I sprayed them direct. Again, it's color. Like if it's an absolute color you need, sure, this stuff is great.
Jeremy, I use this.
Yep.
You have to thin it a little bit, but not 50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
What are you using to thin it?
Just the Vallejo thin.
Yeah, the Vallejo thinner. Yeah, Vallejo and again, that's important.
Yeah.
Because with Vallejo Air, I won't use anything else other than their thinner. Because again, the margin of error is very thin on a lot of these. And you don't want to do it trial by error. So Vallejo,
Suggestion on how much to cut it?
Yeah.
Or
You know,
a few drops.
Just
Just a few drops. Again, 2% milk.
2% milk.
I know that sounds really goofy, but if you pour this into a container,
But it is too thick.
just look at it. And if it looks like that's a little thick, again, 2% milk, put a couple drops of Vallejo thinner in. But it's wise, so anytime you've kind of decided, okay, this is the paint line I really kind of like, good advice, just go out and get their thinner. Like get their thinner. So that will take all the doubt out of it. Because even some of them aren't that receptive to water, right? They're not. Yeah.
What have you thinned life color with?
I use their thinner.
I do too, but
Yeah, they're
what kind of
thinner.
ratios?
I use, again, I'm 50/50
50.
when I'm airbrushing, yeah.
It can be pretty thin looking.
It is thin looking, but I find that it's still like you said about Vallejo Air, like it looks like it's thinned, but when you're spraying it, you realize, ooh, that's a little thick. And so I tend to cut it, yeah. The thing about life color, I'm not a chemist, and even with some of the courses we've had, it's got a really weird smell to it, and that sometimes throws me off a bit. I don't know what it is. But again, you still want to use a well-ventilated area and all this stuff that we've talked about.
I've looked at some of Dave Brown's videos, and he uses like an 80-20 or some crazy ratio.
Sometimes he goes higher.
Yeah.
I don't, again, it just depends on the application of what you're trying to do. Generally, so I find that when you're painting, kind of try to paint in stages. Like, how am I going to look at your model and go, okay, how am I going to approach how I'm going to paint this? Because everything kind of requires, at times, a lot of painting techniques require different pressures, different ratios. Like spraying metallics. That's a whole different kind of genre. I will find that I'll spray metallics only on that run of painting. And again, metallics, because if you don't clean your airbrush properly, the next time you paint your whatever, you're going to have flake in it. That's just the nature of the beast. So when I paint figures as Elliot, I have a separate, basically I have separate brushes for metallics, because metallics are what they are. You're going to get metal flake, doesn't matter how hard you try to clean. So when it comes to painting, you kind of want to approach, like the technique that Dave uses. You might do that for for fuel stains. You might use a much greater ratio like that, like 80-20, whatever. Me personally, I don't. I just don't kind of find the need to do it, if that makes, I know it doesn't sound right, but that's just how I paint, right? But what I do focus on are the basics. If I'm painting metallic, I'm just painting metallic. So if you're doing an exhaust, say you're doing a 30-second P51, and you want to, you're going to be doing multiple kinds of aluminum or whatever on your painting aluminum, that's all I'll paint. And then again, I'll strip this thing you'll strip this like a firearm and clean it, because metallic gets into everything, right? So try to get yourself used to painting in segments, right? So if you're doing Gundam or whatever, say you want to do science fiction, like Alex is painting, you're very careful when you paint metallic, correct? Like you just paint in segments. That's the only way I can really describe it, right? So once you kind of get everything sorted out, I've seen so many people make mistakes in painting, and I don't know what I call it, but I always offshoot.
Oh, yeah.
You definitely want to keep a piece of cardboard. Look at that. Like, there's a line that I was using the other day, and so that's pretty fine. So again, how I know I have that consistency where I can get down like that is because I look into my airbrush and I know that it's clean, right? So that, when I mean offshoot, I've never ever shot onto a model directly. I always spray first and make sure that I'm 100% consistent with my paint delivery before I go on to what I'm painting. I do that. It's like when you're painting a figure, you're always going from your palette to whatever you're painting, right? You never go direct paint onto figure. You always go paint, palette, then onto your figure, right? So always offshoot first to see what your paint's going to be like, okay? And then, take your time offshooting. Make sure that you're comfortable with your paint. Make sure that you're getting the right flow. Make sure that your air pressure is okay. You want to do that. And I can't say that enough, because so many people, again, once in a while, like that little error I had last week, that was like a mid-spray error. And I don't know if it was just me because I was looking at the tip, So, and basic terminology, like, you know, the tip or the crown is where you'll get paint buildup, because if you're using acrylic, it's just the nature of the beast. Like it dries fast, it atomizes very quickly, right? So you're always checking the crown for paint buildup. You want to make sure that the crown stays kind of clean, right? Because the needle has to move. On a double action airbrush, the needle has to move back and forth, right? The other big mistake I see people make, and again, it's not a mistake really, it's just kind of the nature of what we do modeling, is when you've cleaned your airbrush, the one thing I find people really, it doesn't matter how well you clean a double action airbrush, you want to take the needle out before you start painting, because there's a tiny microscopic layer of paint that will still form and set in the chamber. And so when you run your finger on it, you can actually feel it. So as good as you think you've cleaned it, and I think I'm pretty actually psychotic when it comes to cleaning this thing, I still take my needle out every time before I paint, and I run my finger over it just to make sure that it's smooth, right?
I know she pulled the needle out from the back.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
I've heard you push it through so you don't get paint on the seal, right? When you pull
That's
it through.
just me.
Okay.
Yeah,
I do the
yeah.
same thing, Tom.
Yeah.
Pull it from the back.
Yeah,
Well, I clean
I
mine
use the
every
back.
time. Every
Yeah,
time I
yeah, I
change
pull
paint, I
out the
clean
back. Yeah, that's just, yeah, again, it's just, I won't say one way's right, one way's wrong.
Some airbrushes you can't push it through.
Yeah,
You break it.
with Iwata, it's nice. So, but always take the needle out, check your needle. I always put my needle against something that I can see I can see how straight the needle is, right? I want to make sure that the needle's straight. I want to make sure that when I roll the needle, that it's even. So when I roll the needle, I'm doing this, I'm looking and it's even, right? Those are all things that if you get used to doing that, just kind of like, your painting's going to be better. You know, first thing you do, okay, I'm going to paint it. I'm going to take the body of my, you know, my Ferrari, whatever, my Testarossa, and I'm going to paint the body today, but I'm going to take my needle out, I'm going to do this, I'm going to run my finger over it, I'm okay. But if you just pour paint into that cup, and I've got my air pressure, and then, yeah, that makes for a bad painting experience, right? It doesn't matter who we are, because we've all been there, right? But if you get used to just saying, okay, first things I'm going to do when I airbrush, I look at my airbrush, I make sure that everything's, you know, I make sure that that's nice and smooth, it's lubricated. It just makes airbrushing a lot easier, right? So the needle, if it's a double action airbrush, you want to make sure that needle's always smooth as silk, right? Now, how can I clean the needle? There's so many ways to do it. I will use a little bit of lacquer thinner. Just take a tiny bit of lacquer thinner on a piece of paper towel and just run it, just to make sure that all the paint's off. The nice thing too, when it's dry, I do tend to use the Tamiya, this little Iwata Super Lube stuff. I don't know what it is. It's like Japanese blue soap. I don't know. But
Glycerin, I think.
it is. It's like a glycerin. Yeah. I make fun of it because yeah, it works. But you know what? Honestly, your skin has a natural oil to it too. A lot of times I'll just run my needle on my hand like that, because your skin has natural oil to it. And really you just want to give the needle that little bit of lubrication so that when it goes into the body, it can slide back and forth, right? The Iwata, the glycerin stuff is good. I tend to use it. Don't use anything like, I've heard people say, I use Vaseline. Okay, good. I won't. Like, that's just me. Because, yeah, I've heard so many different, either use the manufacturer's stuff or just do this.
Who makes that blue stuff, sorry?
That's Iwata.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think I go through one of these every like maybe 5 years, I don't know.
That's long.
It lasts a long time, yeah. But make sure your needle's good. And then you just basically want to make sure that all the components are good. That's why, you know, when it comes to cleaning, you know, you want to, with Iwata, the cone is expensive. Like, you really want to take care of these little things because, again, they're
$60.
like $50 and $60. But why I tend to like the why I tend to like these new little toothpicks with the filaments on them, they just go right in. Like you can put it right in the body, and or you can conversely go from. See, I should apologize too. I tend to like gravity feed brushes. That's just me, because I can see my paint in a gravity feed brush. I just find it easier to manipulate.
You use less pressure.
I use less pressure, and I've also had many accidents where I'm distracted. I'm like, okay, so you're not alone. Like I've spilt more times than I want to admit. But gravity feed, I just find for me, I have more control. I can see the paint. I can see the paint going through. If it starts to bubble, I can.
It doesn't matter if you're left or right.
Yeah, it does, you're right. The nice thing about Iwata is some of the guns do give you the TR. I'll just go through the TR. It's an amazing airbrush. It almost looks like it's a mini spray gun. Okay, it's like a mini industrial spray gun. You can use it either left or right because it has a port. It has ports on both sides and a cap that you can just switch conversely. Again, it is an absolute engineering marvel. This thing will go down to a hairline. I love it, but again, I find that my finger, your finger has a little memory on its own, right? And I find if I start using this, my finger has a tough time going back to my double action airbrush, right? So it's a beautiful design. It fits in your hand. If you've never seen it, I'll pass it around. It fits in your hand beautifully. But again, I'm not a quirky, I'm not one to just buy stuff for the sake of buying it. Because they're expensive. I think this thing's like $350, $400. But would I buy one again? No. I wouldn't buy one again, because again, I find the body mechanics of going from this to my double action is really tough. But if this is your primary airbrush, you can't get a better airbrush because it will give you the flexibility of everything.
How do they call? I've got the Grex here. They call it a double action.
Yeah, how is it? Don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah,
It does it.
And yeah, I can't. Yeah, and I think we're both kind of fairly good mechanically.
One action is down. And the
No,
other action is down.
this is
just kinda trigger.
Oh, that one.
No,
Yeah.
the Grex is the same. Yeah,
So
it's
that's a
not.
double action?
It's double action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't need one.
You can feel the.
You can
Well,
feel
it's
it.
funny because they say,
It's a
well, if you
double
pull
trigger.
it back, it does the air,
But
and then
how
when you
it-
get halfway, you
That's
get
right.
the paint. And
How
it's
it
like,
actuates.
but I can't get paint unless I go
No.
past the halfway.
But how it
point.
actuates, I don't have a
But
clue.
it does, it's not, but you're right about switching back and forth.
But switching back and forth, your motor skills, your memory motor skills, I find the older I get, and I'm not ashamed to admit that, I can feel it. Like I'm like I can't really do it. That's easy. This is super easy. That's like super easy. I just adjust and I paint, right? So you want to find one that really suits your needs. If you love, siphon feed gun, siphon feed is, a lot of people will like siphon feed. I just like to see the gravity feed because I can see any problems right away. If I see the bubbling, I know very quickly I have a problem, right? So, and that's kind of why I like gravity feed. But once you get used to that mindset of cleaning, so when I look at my airbrush, I will take it apart. I'll take all the basic components apart. I love Iwata in the sense that they designed, I think it's proprietary, they designed their little inline moisture valve. It's great. It's got a little purge in it. I tend not to, I'm not going to be airbrushing in August when it's 104 and it's humid. You don't want to do that. That's when, if you want to do something modeling, that's when you just want to pull out something and just clean it, or some basic stuff. You don't want to be airbrushing when it's super humid. because your airbrush, it doesn't matter how good your airbrush, bless you, it's just not indicative, it's not receptive, sorry, to high humidity. But these are absolute little godsends. I think it might.
There's one on your airbrush, the compressor already has a trap.
It does. So it's just kind of like, so this has a moisture trap with a purge. So actually this is two. Each side has a moisture trap attached to it, and then the tank has a trap too. So generally, if any moisture gets up to that point, we're kind of in trouble. But I tend to like the way Iwata did it because again, it balances the airbrush nicely.
Very tactile.
And it just provides kind of that last level of potential. I might have the older one too, the Pash one. But Pash did an inline, yeah, here, do I have it? Yeah, there it is. This is a Pash inline filter. That's, yeah, so again, it's like 100-year-old design. God bless, like 100-year-old design, and it worked fine. It actually has a little purge valve on it, and again, it's just meant as that line of defense for moisture coming through your line. So generally, do you need an air dryer? Do you need stuff like that? No, you don't, because a good compressor will have one, like you said, and if you're buying an Iwata, this is just a nice little insurance policy for at the end of your gun, so you're not going to get that moisture. But even this one, for whatever, 20 bucks or whatever that was, it works very well too.
So Tom, I just find this is also, it makes it easier to hold the airbrush.
Yeah, it does. It balances the airbrush.
It's
It
almost
balances
like
the
tactile.
airbrush nicely. Yeah.
I find that more of a use than the actual water.
So we've established the most important thing is cleaning, right? Clean, 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 and when all else fails, clean again.
Okay, you've been talking about acrylics now. What about enamels?
Clean again.
I love them.
Okay, like, so you're
Smooth.
cut them thinner. I think you're about right what I do. I use enamel mainly.
Yeah. I don't stand up here and like I won't poo-poo on any paint anymore because it's just personal choice, right?
Changes.
Yeah, like I just find though that with the I just have a tough time cleaning enamel now.
The other thing
Like-
with enamel is the best thing to thin it is not thinner, it's
No.
reducer.
Yeah,
You
reducer.
can't get reducer anymore.
No, you can't.
That's
No,
the problem.
no.
I can't.
Like when
I
you
went
look
through
at
my-
I used to buy the automotive paint reducer.
that's right. Yeah.
Worked great.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff.
But a lot of automotive guys have gone like,
It's actually.
but they've gone to acrylic.
That's right.
And so when you look at the evolution of paint though, all the high-end automotive paint now, they've kind of
Water-based.
it's all water,
Forced
it's
to.
all
Yeah,
water,
forced
yeah,
to
it's all
use
water
because of
based,
the,
yeah.
The only time you won't get it now is marine use,
Yes, correct,
and that's
correct.
totally different.
Totally different application, yeah. So, you know, I just really don't have a need to spray enamel. But again, if you step back in time for some of the paints that, well, like look at like for anything marine, modeling, you know, like White Ensign, when you looked at the paints that were coming out, you know, the colors, they were absolutely, the extra color, like
Oh,
extra
extra
color was probably the best,
Yeah.
smoothest paint you could find.
The accuracy of the color.
Oh yeah, but smooth. But I just think again, for most of our application in modeling, it's just not. And again, you find
It's got
most
too much of it not to use it.
manufacturers, no I know, most manufacturers are, like you look at testers, they're all gone. Like testers have just discontinued their,
Flow quill.
Flowquill's
Back to-
gone, they're all gone, right?
Polyethylene.
Yeah, and they were spectacular paints, spectacular. I think though, when we look at what's good for our airbrush, you know, we've talked about cleaning. The other thing that I can't say enough about is if you can go out and buy yourself an ultrasonic cleaner. This is just a cheapy jewelry one. I think I spent less than 30 bucks on it. It does wonders for cleaning. So the nice thing about this one is it's got a little basket, right? It's a jewelry cleaner. It's got a little basket, and it's a stainless steel inner, right? If I really have to, I have put lacquer thinner in it, direct lacquer thinner, and clean my airbrush with lacquer thinner. But generally what I use to clean my airbrush in that is Windex. I use Windex because it has a little bit of ammonia in it. It is not abrasive, and it will clean probably 95% of what you got clean. So once, yeah, I've used methyl hydrate. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to say no because I've used it and you can use it. So you could easily, like you said, you could put methyl hydrate in that and use it. I tend to use Windex.
Simple green.
Yeah, simple green. Yeah. But go out and if you do a lot of airbrushing, I can't recommend that enough. And then your wife will say, "Can you clean my rings?" And you're like, "I didn't know. How did you know I had that?"
And are you just using the Windex straight? You're not,
Yeah, Windex straight, absolutely. So my general rule, I use this is about every third or fourth good session of painting. I'll strip it completely and put it all in there. And just
Plug
give
it
it
in for how long?
You know what, it's on a cycle. This is on a, maybe like a 5 minute.
2 minutes.
Yeah, I think this one's maybe 3 to 5. Yeah. Do you have one?
I have several of those.
Yeah.
You have to be careful because a lot of them are not ultrasonic cleaners. They just vibrate.
They vibrate, correct.
So to test it, you put a piece of aluminum in water and it should punch holes into it. And that's how you know it's a real ultrasonic cleaner.
Yeah.
So,
Like
and most of
aluminum
them, like
foil?
says, if you can get it for $30, buy a dozen.
Yeah, I got this one, that was used. I forget where I got that. I think I got that in
But yeah,
Kijiji.
most of them are like
I think I got that on
$70. So if
Kijiji.
you can get it for cheap,
Yeah,
get it.
But
I use it every time after
Yes.
airbrushing.
Yes.
I use it every time.
So do you
Yes.
put also the body of the airbrush in there? Or just
yeah, I
the
do.
sides?
Yeah, I take it right apart and put everything in. Yeah.
Brand new?
Not really.
No.
But like I
No.
said, if you see, there's some other ones with batteries.
Yeah,
Garbage.
don't stick away
They
from
end up
those.
plugging
That's
in.
right.
And it
Yeah.
says,
Yeah.
some will say ultrasonic cleaners, but it's not.
But it's not. Yeah.
What can you tell?
It says battery operated ones, if they have the plastic on the side. This has stainless steel.
Yeah.
So that's one good option.
Yeah.
And if it gives you a, whatever, I think 75,000 megahertz.
Yeah, you'll
something
know.
like that.
It's based on megahertz. You'll know.
But,
Yeah.
but the big test is you put a piece of aluminum in water and it'll punch holes in.
And it'll punch
Then
holes
you'll
in.
know
Yeah.
for sure it
But
is.
but you really, if you can, and you do a lot of airbrushing, I
That's every time after airbrush.
This is it.
It all looks nice.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and you'll never have a problem with your airbrush. Really, I shouldn't say that, but you'll lessen everything hugely if you get one of
Because
these.
it gets all inside where you can't get
It does,
inside.
yeah, especially in the chamber, especially in the body, because I find that as
You
much
put
as
the whole body in there too?
I did.
oh yeah, I just take this right apart and just take it all, yeah, and then you just relubricate it. You relubricate it and you're fine. Yeah. So those are just all things that'll really lessen your frustration. Because as much as you think you can get stuff out of the body, you can't. Like you're still gonna put one of these things in one day and go, okay, that's purple. That was like 5 models ago. Like, why is that, right? So all of us have basically had that experience, right? But try to buy one of those if you can.
Where can you buy that, Canadian Tire?
No,
A lot of places don't have.
they don't. Look under jewelry suppliers or jewelry. Yeah.
Borrow your friends.
Yeah, you're right. You can do icon chandeliers.
Yeah.
glass lights,
Yeah. But also, I tend to, like, to spend, to buy one and you'll have it for the rest of your model, right? So it's a really good
And if you haven't
investment.
used it, just
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of it. If there's any questions,
A troubleshooting question. I want a hairbrush, can I see it?
yeah.
I don't even have one.
This doesn't come, the regular one, the one
Oh,
that's
yeah.
on the top. Yeah. This is very slow in coming back up.
Okay.
Yeah. It may need a new. So that's the plunger.
Yeah.
The plunger valve.
So you need a new plunger?
It may.
The spring underneath.
Or it could be just the spring.
Yeah, some say they lubricate it.
Yeah, just take it out and lubricate. Yeah, just try to lubricate it, and that generally that'll do most. Generally that'll work. Yeah.
Because there is, yeah, the lubricate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great job, Tommy.
Oh, God. I hope it helped.
I learned the two things. I didn't realize you had to lubricate.
Yeah, I hope it helped.
Lubrication's important.
Yeah, it is indeed, yeah.
It is.
So what you're, okay.
But
I'm
when you take it
confused.
apart, right, it's easier.
I didn't even know about the needle.